Which is better, the Google Pixel 8a or the Google Pixel 7a? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my comparison of the Google Pixel 8a versus the Google Pixel 7a. Now, I am part of Team Pixel, and the 8a is a gift from Google. However, I did buy the 7a with my own money. Just wanted to let you know for full disclosure. Now, overall, I'm a really big fan of Pixel's A series, and the main reason for that is because we're getting a lot more value here compared to your typical smartphone. I also like, too, that we're getting pretty much flagship level camera performance with these phones, despite them technically being mid-range phones. And then finally, since these are Pixel devices, you are going to be one of the first ones to get new versions of Android, so that's also a nice bonus. Now, going from one generation to another, it does seem like there are some big differences, but at the same time, there really are more small differences between these two phones. Now, the biggest difference visually, at least, is that with the 8a, we are getting more rounded off corners here compared to the more squared off and boxier 7a, and there's definitely reasons to like and dislike the change. Now, the main benefit of the rounded corners here is that it does make the phone a bit more comfortable to hold in the hand, and makes the phone a lot more ergonomic in general, compared to the 7a where it's not quite as comfortable to hold. Now, on the other hand, having these boxier corners technically gives you more screen real estate here, so it's a bit more efficient, at least when it comes to actually making the most of the front panel here on the device. So I think I personally do prefer the squared corners just because it's more practical, like I said, but at the same time, I do find benefits with rounded corners like we're getting here with the 8a. Now, beyond that, both of these phones do feature 6.1-inch displays, and then they also both feature OLED displays. However, with the 8a this time around, we are getting a 120Hz refresh rate compared to a 90Hz refresh rate with the 7a. And it does make a bit of a difference. Now, 90Hz is definitely better than 60Hz, that's for sure, so that's already good with the 7a here. But then, going from 90Hz to 120 is even better. Now, keep in mind, though, that with the Pixel 8a, the faster refresh rate is actually not enabled by default. So you will have to go down to display here in the settings, and then go down to where it says smooth display, and you can see by default it is actually not enabled. So I'm a bit surprised about that because that is an awesome improvement that we're getting here with the 8a, but just know that you can go here to enable it. Keep in mind though that with that faster refresh rate, expect to get battery life that's not quite as good. But in exchange for that, things are super smooth here when using the device. So when it comes to the display overall, like the brightness of it, the look of the display, the faster refresh rate, it's certainly a nice improvement coming from the 7a. Now beyond that, both of these phones do feature 1080p displays, and then the PPIs are almost the same with 430 with the 8a compared to 429 with the 7a. Both phones have 20:9 aspect ratios, and then they almost have the same screen to body ratio with 81.6% with the 8a compared to 81.8% with the 7a. And then the phones are almost the same exact height, which does make sense since the display sizes are technically the same as well. Both phones do feature 13 megapixel front-facing cameras located in the hole punches up top there. And then with both of these phones, we are getting 120 gigabytes of storage, but with no micro SD card expansion. So I do feel like in 2024, 128 gigs is certainly enough. However, I think some people might notice that it might not be enough. I know for me at least, generally I do prefer 256, but I can survive with 128. But I do feel like, though, on the other hand, 64 gigs is certainly not enough because apps are getting bigger and bigger, and especially lately, it seems like once the apps start caching information and all of that, they end up being like 5 or 6 gigabytes in size. It seems like Facebook is getting bigger every month. So with that in mind, you'll definitely want to get a phone with a bit more internal space. And then also not having micro SD card expansion with either of these certainly makes that even more important. Now, both of these devices do have wireless charging, which is great, so they can wirelessly charge it up to 7.5 watts, so that certainly is convenient in certain situations where it does make sense. Then both of these phones do have face unlock, but they also feature in-display fingerprint sensors. So let's first give that a try here with the 8a. There we go, we'll try that one more time. There we go, so pretty fast. I mean, certainly not as fast as a flagship smartphone, but for a mid-ranger, I would say it's fast enough. And I would say it's pretty much exactly the same here with the 7a, so I don't think they improved the fingerprint sensor going from one generation to another. Then as far as cameras go, both phones do have 64 megapixel main cameras and 13 megapixel ultra wide angle cameras, so definitely a fan of having an ultra wide. A lot of situations where that does come in handy, and then of course having a really good main camera is great too. Pixel phones are known for having really great cameras overall, and then even the A series are known to pretty much give you flagship level camera performance, despite these being mid-range devices. And here's how things look on the camera apps on both phones. This is the main rear camera right now. Then from here we can go over to 0.5 to access the ultra wide angle cameras, and you can see with that you can fit a lot more content into a single frame here. We can also head over to portrait mode to get those nice blurred out backgrounds. And we can also flip around to the front facing cameras to take portrait selfies. There's me right there, so definitely a really nice feature as well. And then we can go over and take standard front-facing photos too. So again, I'm a big fan of the various cameras on Pixel devices, and especially the A series, because we really are getting a lot of value here. And with both devices, we are getting 4K video recording with both the front and rear cameras, with the rear cameras actually allowing up to 60 frames per second in 4K, so that is really nice. Now, both phones do have 8GB of RAM, however, the processors are different. With the Pixel 8a, we have the Google Tensor G3 compared to the Pixel 7a, where we have the Google Tensor G2. So the G2 is what was in the Pixel 7 Pro, and then the G3 is what's in the Pixel 8 Pro. So going from one generation of the Tensor to the next doesn't necessarily make that big of a difference, but at the same time it certainly is an improvement, and especially also when it comes to performance in general, and then also the power efficiency of these two devices. Now, one of the criticisms with the 7a is that this phone sometimes can get a bit hot, but that is not an issue here with the 8a. And then I did run a benchmark test with both devices here, and you can see the scores, and certainly with the Pixel 8a, we are getting higher scores for both single and multi-core compared to the 7a. So I'll just let the numbers speak for themselves here. I do recommend running this test on your current phone as well to see how your scores compare. Now, both phones can charge it up to 18 watts, and then we are getting a 4,492 mAh internal battery with the 8a, compared to a slightly smaller 4,385 mAh internal battery with the 7a. And then keep in mind as well is that if you do want to get that full 18 watts for the fast charging, you will have to use a wall adapter that can actually provide that. Now, the average cheap wall adapter out there probably doesn't actually provide up to 18 watts, so you're going to have to definitely look into that and double check. And both phones are currently running Android 14. Of course, since these are Pixel phones and they are from Google, they are some of the first devices to actually get new versions of Android, which is great. So just know that you are covered for updates for quite a while with both phones. And then with both of these devices, we are getting NFC, so you can use them with Google Pay, for example, for tap and pay. So that certainly is a very nice feature. Now, taking a closer look at the hardware of these two devices, on the left side of both phones, we do have the slot for the SIM card. On the right side, we have the power button and then volume up and volume down. Up top here in both devices, we have the noise canceling microphone. And on the bottom of the two phones, we have the speaker, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and the microphone. And then both of these phones do support stereo audio, so if you're watching a video or listening to music, for example, you will be getting sound out of both the earpiece and also the main speaker at the same time, which pretty much gives you a more immersive, higher quality, richer experience. And then taking a look at the back of these two devices, definitely some big differences here. The camera bar is pretty similar, but the big difference is that we have a matte finish with the Pixel 8a compared to a glossy finish with the Pixel 7a. Now, I'm personally a big fan of matte finishes because they do not pick up really too many fingerprints at all. But then you can see with the 7a, well, you can see a lot of fingerprints. This particular color of the device really doesn't show them too much. So I am curious to know what you think. Would you rather get a phone with a matte finish or a phone with a glossy finish? So this concludes my comparison of the Google Pixel 8a versus the Google Pixel 7a. Again, thank you Google for sending me the Pixel 8a, definitely appreciate it, and I am very curious to know what you think of these two phones. Let me know in the comment section below, but this is Kevin here, and I will see you in the next one. Take care and have a great rest of your day.